Hey everybody, we are super excited to return to the Sketchfest stage and do a live show again. We missed it so much last year, and we can't wait to get back to San Francisco.
Yeah, it's our first live show in 2 years, Chuck, and we're going to be there at the Sidney Goldstein Theater in beautiful San Francisco, California at 7:30 on Friday, January 21st. It is a straight-up Stuff You Should Know live show, and it's going to be off the chain.
That's right. You should show up to see if we've forgotten how to do this, to see us skate around on stage nervously, doubting ourselves, and eventually bringing the funnies.
Yeah, hopefully.
Where do they go? They go to SF, as in San Francisco, sfsketchfest.com. Click on the schedule and tickets link. There are tons and tons and tons of great shows. It's the best comedy festival in the country, in my opinion, over the whole month of January. So go check us out and go check out everybody else as well.
Yep, it's also a full vaccination show, so you've got to show proof of vaccination and wear some masks. Don't be naughty.
Don't be naughty, be nice.
So we'll see you guys on Friday, January 21st in San Francisco, California.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh Clark, and there's Charles W. Chuck Bryan over there, and this is Stuff You Should Know. I should say Stuff You Should Know.
That's a good one.
Thank you. That was off the cuff, Chuckers.
You ever had a kidney stone?
No, let me find
that you know
some
of?
wood. I guess that's close
wood.
enough. No, I haven't. I have not. How about you?
I haven't. I think I'll probably get one day.
Yeah, you just know it's in the cards for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like bad kidney issues, but when you get to be my age, certain organs start saying, hi, pay attention to me a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
and the kidney's one of those, but
for sure.
I'm not dying or anything.
No, I know that. It's more just like, what's it? If you got a hinky kidney, you could conceivably get a kidney stone for sure.
That is certainly true.
So, I, my friend, wish that you never, ever, ever, ever get a kidney stone. I wish the same for Jerry. I wish the same for every person you know and like and love, and same for me. Okay?
That's right. But wishes and dreams do not bear any weight here, my friend, because I think you got about a 10% chance, if you're a living human, of having a kidney stone. And besides being super painful, they can kill you. About 16,000 people a year die from kidney stones or complications that arise.
Yeah, what a way to go, man, from kidney stones. Now, you're probably not going to die from your kidneys failing because that would require both kidneys being blocked simultaneously so badly that they just shut down on you. That's probably not going to happen. But there's a lot of procedures that you would probably go through to treat a terrible kidney stone that could kill you. An infection could kill you. There's all sorts of ways it could bring about your death, and that would not be very pleasant. I agree with you.
Yeah, they are. There's different kinds. We're kind of gonna go through them here, but they're generally classified in a couple of ways. Where they are and what kind they are, like how they were formed. There are all kinds of fancy schmancy doctor names for kidney stones, renal calculi, urolithiasis, but they're going to call them kidney stones if it's a doctor that has an interest in being your friend.
Right. So where they are is really important because they need to know where they are so they can help you figure out how to deal with these in the most particular way. And there's only like a certain number of places that a kidney stone is going to be. And Chuck, I looked high and low and could not find a definitive answer. As I saw some places that seemed to say all kidney stones or all stones start in the kidneys. But I also saw like little snippets here or there that made it seem like there's other places stones can form.
I saw shoulder blade.
Right. But regardless, that's my point. Regardless of where they form, they're going to form only in your urinary tract, which includes your kidneys, your ureters, which are the tubes that take your pee from your kidneys down to your bladder, the bladder itself, and then the urethra, narrow or otherwise, which is where the pee comes out. Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and say the ureters, they should have built those a little wider.
Agreed.
Could stopped a lot of heartache.
Yeah, because one of the big problems that you're going to have if you get a kidney stone is your ureters are like 2 millimeters in diameter, and they're not very flexible. So when you're passing a hardened stone, a crystallized stone of mineral through that's larger than 2 millimeters, it is going to cause some problems.
Yeah, I'm sure that they didn't seem like they needed to be bigger at the time when
I know.
man and woman was created.
Right.
But because all that's going through there is pee, but the lack of foresight on those stones is a big problem.
Yeah. Tisk, tisk, Yahweh.
That's right.
So you've got stones in the kidney, nephroliths. Lith means stone. You've got your ureteroliths, which are in the ureters. And again, that's a really terrible place for them to be. And then you've got cystoliths, which are in the bladder, and I guess by proxy, the urethra too, right?
That's right. The ones in the upper tract, those are going to be a little more problematic generally, a little more severe. Mm-hmm. If you're going to get complications and long-term problems, they're generally going to be because of those upper urinary tract stones. But they're all, none of them, the only ones that aren't a big deal are the ones that are so tiny that you just, and that's why I said that you know of.
Right.
Like, people probably thought I was joking, but you can urinate out kidney stones and not even know you ever had one if they're small enough.
Yeah. Just pee yourself right now. There's a chance you just peed out a little tiny,
maybe
a stone of some sort.
Yeah.
But for the
little baby,
right, when you do know that you have a kidney stone, though, you really, really know it. And we'll talk about the process of passing a kidney stone later. But the other way to define a kidney stone, and usually they're going to be defined by location, and then also in this other way by composition, because kidney stones can be made up of a lot of different things. But the upshot of them, Chuck, is that if you have too much of something in your pee, or too little pee, or imbalanced pee, pH-wise, things can solidify. That should be liquid. They can precipitate out of solution, and when that happens, it can start basically a snowball effect where more and more of that stuff is attracted, and that's where your stone's formed.
Yeah, it's just mineral things that can't be dissolved, basically. Mm-hmm. And they like to have company. They like to get together with their other non-dissolved friends. Mm-hmm. And party together and hang out together. And pretty soon, if you get a big enough party, you're going to be in some kind of pain.
Yeah, you're going to have a pain party for you.
But I guess we should talk a little bit. This is sort of about as wonky as we're going to get in this next section.
Okay. Which
is the makeup of these stones. And most of them are made up, about 60 to 80% are calcium oxalate. Mm-hmm. And this is basically too much calcium or oxalate in your urinary system. And it's, there are a number of things that can cause this, but they're generally all metabolic problems, although I think there is a little genetics involved with the calcium oxalate as well.
Yeah, that seems to be my take on it too, that genetics have a large role in whether you're predisposed to having kidney stones or not. Diet and lifestyle can definitely affect it, but it's like if you have hyperparathyroidism and you're absorbing too much calcium from your bones, that probably doesn't have much to do with your diet. And that's one way that you can have too much calcium. Your renal system might not absorb enough calcium into waste, and so there's more of it hanging around there than there should be. There's a few ways that it can happen, but the upshot of it is either you have too much calcium or too much oxalate, and they combine together to form, what'd you say, like 60 to 80% of kidney stones?
Yeah, that's 60 to 80, and I think actually I don't have a percentage for struvite stones. These are also called infection stones, mm-hmm. and they're, if you get a lot of UTIs, you might be more prone to struvite stones. Sometimes there's just some kinds of bacteria, and if you match that up with the right metabolic condition that's going wrong, they'll get together and cause struvite stones.
Yeah, the struvite stones seem to rely a lot on whether you're if your urine is out of balance pH wise, specifically that it's highly alkaline, so it's above 7 as far as pH goes, and that combined with certain kinds of bacterial infections can create that. It looks like staghorn seems to be the most common type, which, you do not want a tiny mineral That fits the bill of staghorn flowing through your ureters.
Yeah.
You do not.
Not good at all. Then you have about 10% or less are formed by uric acid. And this is sort of, if you have problems with your uric acid or gout, you're probably going to have kidney stones at some point. The gout diet it's sort of the same triggers. They're high in what's called purines, shellfish, organ meats, any kind of meat, really. Beer, for sure. Like, those are all on the list of things that you don't want if you're trying to keep your uric acid in check.
Yeah, because the uric acid is a metabolite of purine, and it crystallizes very easily. It can precipitate easily out of the pee if there's too much of it. So yeah, that can be a bad jam for sure. There's also cysteine stones. Cysteine's an amino acid. It's used throughout the body for a number of different ways, but unfortunately it's the least soluble amino acid. So that means that it can precipitate out of pee fairly easily too. Luckily, those are kind of rare. You actually have probably a congenital disorder that causes cysteine stones, but unfortunately that means you have a congenital disorder that causes stones, which means it's probably a chronic condition.
Right. And I think that's the same for the rare xanthine stones, right?
Yeah, and xanthine is another purine. It's found in caffeine, tea, and colas. And it occurred to me, Chuck, while I was researching this, is that what Purina is trying to get across with their brand name? That their food is chock full of purines?
Maybe. I always kind of thought it was probably just a play on the word pure.
Oh, it never occurred to me like that. But I wonder. Maybe they're like, why can't it be both, Josh and Chuck?
And then there's, of course, the infinity stones, which are a real problem for about half the population.
Yeah, and one other thing also.
Walked right past that one almost.
Chuck, I'm glad I stopped and took a double take. Was that written down? I can't see your notes.
That was no notes.
Wow. That was good then, man. I think you just won the World Cup for 2021 in the off-the-cuff stuff you should know joke.
Oh, okay.
Battle. Okay.
I'll take it.
One other thing about uric acid stones is that is kind of the opposite of struvite stones, where your pee is too acidic. Like, it'll burn right through metal if you pee on a car.
Right. Should we take a break?
Yeah, we should take a break. I need to regroup after that huge win by you just a moment ago.
All right. We'll be right back, and I'll say what I'm going to say after this. So I didn't know if I didn't think you watched those Marvel movies, so I didn't know if you'd get that joke.
Well, I mean, like, I'm conscious, like, I can form thoughts and observe, like, outside stimuli. So that means, yes, I'm familiar and aware with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what goes on in it.
Oh, well, see, I would think if you didn't see the movies, you'd have no idea what an Infinity Stone is.
No, I mean, well, let me see. I guess I saw the one that you were specifically referring to where half of everybody just dissolves. I saw that one.
Should we say spoiler alert?
Oh, yeah.
If you don't know that by now, come on. Those are the biggest movies in the world, so.
Well, thank you for defending me like that.
No apologies necessary.
No accountability here.
But you'll have to watch the second one to find out what happens after that. How about that?
Well, they come back. I haven't seen that one, but I'm just presuming there's no way.
Did you really watch part one and not part two?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I did not see the second one yet.
I guess if you didn't like it much, you'd be like, well, am I going to spend another 2 hours and 40 minutes of my life?
But the thing is, I did like it. I mean, I was entertained and amused. I guess I just knew that at the very least, everybody who was anybody was going to come back somehow. I didn't know how, but I guess I didn't really care how. I want
to strap you in a chair and
like Clockwork Orange?
Clockwork Orange style and make you watch the Beatles documentary.
No.
All right. So back to regular kidney stones, right?
Yes. So we kind of talked about how they form, but it's worth just kind of saying one more time. It's basically you've got stuff in your pee, minerals that don't dissolve very easily, or there's too many of them, or there's not enough pee, and they just go whoosh, and they crystallize. And that's how it starts. And that kicks off this process of where usually they form initially in your kidney, but they can form anywhere. But they'll hang on to like a little node in your kidney and start to nucleate there, kind of like a snowflake. Ed helped us with this one, and he's like, it's like a snowflake basically growing from like a little dust mote when it's cold enough.
Yeah, and like you said, they don't always have to form that way. Sometimes they can just form free floating in your urine, just moving about the party. But they do better for sure when they're attached initially to something. When one little tiny particle hangs on to something like, I know Ed mentioned the renal papilla, those little projections in the kidneys.
Papilla.
That's a good place for them to get together. They may grow there for a little while. They may detach and then float away. But they also might attract friends at these attachment points, and that's when the problem starts. They're eventually going to detach, but they just like to congregate in like the cool area of the party.
Yeah, and see, what you just said made me think like you could probably form a stone anywhere in your urinary tract, that whole system, as long as there's a place for it to kind of clomp onto, or it's bad enough that they're just forming right in the middle of your urine. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be your kidneys.
Yeah, and they look like, I think Ed had the perfect descriptor here. It looks like a little granola chunk, granula.
Yeah, some of them look a little more mean and menacing than others. Some are even like smooth, where you're like, geez, I enjoy passing these.
Yeah.
They make a very satisfying plop sound when they come out of the urethra. But again, there's like staghorns, there's the widowmaker, there's the Judas Priest. They have terrible names. But they really kind of drive home how bad these things hurt.
Is it really the Judas Priest?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't that be great?
You never know. Doctors have a sense of humor. The two of them.
Wouldn't that be great, though?
So I would think it would be this, like, it looks like the double horn fist.
I was thinking it was going to look like that metal eagle.
Oh, that too. The screaming eagle? Mm-hmm. Living after midnight.
The metal fist sounds worse, though, for sure.
Well, and this is the case with kidney stones, anything, and that's why those staghorns are so bad. If it's the spikier, I mean, you don't have to be a doctor to tell someone that the spikier something is, the more painful it's going to be.
Right. Yeah, they're describing your kidney stone to you, and you're like, I didn't realize you're a doctor. They say, oh, I'm not a doctor. I just stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Anybody could tell you that.
Right.
So the pain that you're going to feel, like when you get diagnosed for a kidney stone, you're probably going to go into the doctor after feeling sort of lower groin pain for a while, maybe in your lower back or side of your abdomen. And you might be going, man, this is like, I didn't pull my back. What's going on? And you may live with it for a little while, just thinking it might be a pulled muscle or anything like that, or a strained groin even. And then at some point, hopefully someone in your life is going to say, you may want to go, like, that may be a kidney stone. Get that checked out.
Yeah, you may want to get that checked out. One of the reasons, I didn't understand this, but it makes total sense. One of the reasons why it feels so much worse than just your ureter or your kidney saying, is that there's a bunch of really important nerves that pass right through the kidney, right through that notch that gives the kidney its characteristic shape.
You get these?
The celiac plexus.
Yeah.
Plexus.
Well, see.
Screwed up right out of the gate. The intermesenteric plexus.
Nice.
The lumbar splonknick.
I like the splonknick or the splanknick.
Yeah, I like it too. I like the celiac plexus though. It's got a pleasant look to it. It's like cellar door.
Yeah. You love cellar door.
It wasn't just me. That's a Tolkien reference. I think he said it was the
I know, but you mentioned it a lot in the show is what I mean.
I just think it's such a great idea that somebody was like, I definitively say this is the most beautiful word in the English language, and it just happened to be Tolkien. So like there's an extra little twist at the end there. And it was used in Donnie Darko. So it's a pretty great little thing.
I have my favorite word though. It's not cellar door.
It's moist pus.
No, it's the Beatles, and it's used in the Peter Jackson documentary, The Beatles.
Is it really
Get
that
Back.
good?
It's amazing.
Okay.
I mean, I'll say this. You would hate it, but if you're a casual Beatles fan, it's probably not even for you.
Right.
Or even if you're like, no, I like the Beatles, it's probably not even for you. Because it's 8 hours of just sitting in there fly on the wall style. So you really got to be into like, did you see that look that George just gave Paul when he said that one thing? Like, It's that kind of level of wonkiness.
Yeah, I would not like that at all. I have a music documentary that Yumi and I watched the other day that's really good. It's on Sparks.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've seen that.
You saw it? I loved it.
Great.
I had never heard of Sparks. I didn't realize Sparks existed. I'm actually I've been disappointed in myself ever since that I didn't realize they were a thing. But that is a great documentary. One of the things I like about them is not just their music, but just like how naturally and genuinely positive they are without trying to be positive, and also actually being kind of fiendish in their sense of humor. But they're still overall like very positive. It's pretty cool. Pretty good documentary.
Great. And I'll even go ahead and recommend, even though I haven't seen it, it's on the list this week. I just got to get through the Beatles thing. Is the Todd Haynes Velvet Underground documentary? I hear is just like ridiculously good, which I can't wait for because Todd Haynes is the best.
I'm going to check that out.
So that was Documentary Corner. I got my movie crush fix.
Well, we need to take our berets off and drop our cigarette holders and get back to it.
I think we were talking about those three nerves, and they can cause nausea and vomiting because those three nerves run right through what's called the renal hilum. And that's that little, if you look at a kidney, or even a kidney bean or a kidney-shaped swimming pool, you can imagine what it might look like.
Man,
it's the little notch inside that curve, and all three of those nerves run right in there. So if your kidney is inflamed or spasming or something, it's going to be tweaking those things like piano strings.
Yeah, and spasming is right. You just said the magic word because your kidney is well aware that it has something it shouldn't have in it, and it actually has a way to take care of that, and that is by spasming it out, trying to push it out. The kidney does that, and so do your ureters. And your ureter actually like clomp down around it and try to squeeze it out through spasms. So kidney pain is typically associated with basically the worst pain you could ever experience. I think people who have given birth before who did it without any kind of drugs say, nope, a kidney stone is actually worse than that. And what's great is everybody can share in the fun of a kidney stone.
Did you see what Ed's friend called it?
Yeah.
Ed has a friend who had kidney stones and said it was like giving birth to a knife.
Right.
That kind of says it all.
It really does. The worst of it, from what I've seen, I found a urology website, and it basically says the two worst by far is when it's in the kidney and then when it's in the ureter. And apparently when it's in the kidney, it's even worse. That's the worst of all. But the upshot of it is, in addition to feeling nauseated, for your back and your abdomen to hurt, you're actually going to be experiencing pain in your kidney and in your ureter as they're pushing this thing out. And it comes in waves of pain called renal colic. And they will give you narcotics to take care of it. It's that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, the best feel-good drugs available are coming your way.
Yeah, and they'll probably just barely make a dent. Yeah. I don't know that that's true, but I'm really trying to drive home how painful kidney stones are.
I wish one of us would have had it, just so we could speak from experience.
I'm actually glad we aren't speaking from experience.
And I wish that person was you. No. No, I'm glad we haven't had it, but I'll, hopefully over the next, until we retire, I'll keep everyone up to date on whether or not to get kidney stones.
Okay. All right. I think that's fair.
Squatted land and kidney stones. Those are my two lifelong updates.
What about your teeth? Don't forget your teeth.
Well, everyone knows I got to get that tooth done again. So,
man, I just had a deep cleaning on two of my teeth, and it was not pleasant, but my periodontist was great. Very nice and gentle and apologetic. And I think I'm better off as a result. I'm a better person.
Was that the rooting and scaling thing?
I believe so.
There wasn't like a gum treatment, sort of?
Yeah, and there wasn't like an incision. She didn't cut,
no,
thankfully.
It's the worst.
But
they want me to do that again.
Yeah, it's not fun at all, but
hopefully
now that I'm done, it's done.
I was about to say, as if it was any better, we should get back to kidney stones. But to get these things treated, there are quite a few options, thankfully. It depends on where it is, depends on how big it is. If it's one of those ureter stones, they're probably going to say, pass it. It might even take a few weeks, but drink tons of water and see if you can pee that thing out.
Yeah, once it gets out of the kidney.
Yeah, and I think if it's 5 millimeters or smaller, you got about a 90% chance of passing that thing through a urine, and it goes down to 50% between 5 millimeters and 10 millimeters.
And if you can eat and you can drink and you don't have a fever, they're probably going to send you home with some pain pills and some Flomax to relax your urethral sphincter so you can pee easier, and you're going to pee all the time. And as it moves down into like your bladder, it's going to increase the pressure there because of the inflammation in your bladder. So you're going to have to feel like you have to pee all the time, even though you don't necessarily. But they're going to send you home and be like, best wishes, best of luck, keep us posted. Let us know if you spike a fever, something like that.
Right. You're also going to get all kinds of tests, blood tests, urine tests, things like that, just to see, like you may have more than one stone, the identification of the stone. I mean, there could be a larger problem, if we're talking about these metabolic imbalances, like if you may have chronic kidney stones or at least another one in the future.
Yeah.
They want to kind of get you on the right track. So you're going to do a lot of tests as well.
Yeah, and one of Yumi's friends used to get them a lot. And I didn't have a chance to ask him, but I think he might have outgrown them, I hope, God willing. But I'm pretty sure he had to pee into like a mesh cup to catch the stone. And I realized now it's not because he was a weirdo. It was because they wanted to analyze the stone. Because, again, you can tell a lot about what is driving you to produce kidney stones if you can just look at it, because you can see what it's made of. Well, you can see what it's made of, and that'll tell you a lot.
I think I'd want to keep mine.
Well, that's the other thing, too. You got a pretty nice trophy. You could get a grill made with it.
That's what I need on my fake front teeth.
Yeah.
A couple of kidney stones.
A couple of stag horns just sticking out, slicing into the back of your top lip.
If they are larger, you're going to need some more, what Ed calls direct intervention. And that's pretty much says it all. They're going to look at you with x-rays. They might use an ultrasound. They're going to find out exactly where that puppy is. They're going to see if it's moving along or if it's kind of stuck in place. And then they're going to go to work. It's a little more expensive, but I would say just by reading this, if it's an option and if you can afford it, I would go to the such a hard word to say, lithotripsy method.
Sure. Yeah, because it's non-invasive. It's all ultrasound. Like they use ultrasound, maybe x-rays to find it, and then they use ultrasound to break it up. And Chuck, Ed produced a sentence that seems innocuous until you realize that if you read it like a monster truck ad announcer, it's really boss.
Which one is it?
Focused ultrasound shockwaves are directed at the stone, crushing it into smaller pieces without damaging the surrounding tissue.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Yep.
You should be a doctor. That'd be fun.
Dude, everything would be called the Judas Priest.
Whatever.
Right. Be like, this is a Judas Priest baby.
Yeah, it's a Judas Priest fracture. We can fix that, no problem. If it's larger even than that, like too large, and I guess this is a Judas Priest album, too large for lithotripsy. Or if they can't find it, maybe if it's like exactly where it is, or maybe you don't have it available to you because of money or wherever you live, you can go to a uteroscopy, and that is a little bit more invasive, but not surgery yet. But that's when they're going to send a scope up through the urethra. Probably not a lot of fun, into the bladder, into the ureter, and then they capture it. Ed calls it like a little basket, and they pull it out. And then sometimes if it's even bigger, they can use a laser to break it up and then pull it out.
Right, but that's the key. The ureteroscopy is that they actually can remove the stones, whereas I think with lithotripsy, man,
such a hard word.
It is. That they go in there and break it up, and a complication could be is like it's kind of like that stupid Russian satellite missile test that they just did. Remember where they created way more space junk than there used to be? You're doing the same thing with lithotripsy.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Where you're breaking up these stones. And so one of the complications can be like, now you got a bunch of kidney stones. And yeah, they're smaller, but not all of them are so small that you won't notice them or that they won't necessarily cause an infection or something like that.
Right. Or in the case of the Guinness record holder.
Oh, my God.
The man in India in 2004, this thing was, and I looked up different kinds of sports balls, and the closest I could find was it was about the size of a shot put.
What? Oh my goodness.
5 inches in diameter.
I mean, it is. I never thought about it. Like I even made that with my hands.
I know.
And I
kept thinking it's got to be circumference. It's got to be.
No, it's diameter because I went and looked too. But so for those people who've never seen a shot put and don't know what 5 inches is, that's like 13 centimeters in diameter.
Yeah, it's bigger than a softball. If you don't know what a softball is, it's about a regular grapefruitish size.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so obviously that was a surgical removal, which is the last, the last line of defense is to get that surgery, and it's called, this one's mine, percutaneous nephrolithotomy.
Nicely done.
And that they make a little notch, a little incision in the lower back, and they scope it out too, so it's not some huge thing, but they use a thin scope into the kidney, break it up again, remove the pieces. And we should mention too that some of these, I think the uteroscopy is when they uteroscopy.
No, there's an extra vowel in there. It's not just me.
Uteroscopy. Yeah, uteroscopy. Ureteroscopy. Oh my God.
Adding an extra vowel every time eventually pays off.
Ureteroscopy. That is the one that you still need the anesthetic, and you might eventually need a stent, which again goes back to my thing that the ureter should be bigger.
Yeah.
If they're putting in stents, that means that's the size that it should have been to begin with.
Absolutely. Then anything could just pass through, even a 5-inch diameter kidney stone from India.
Should we take a break?
I think we should take our second break and come back and talk about what I think everybody wants to know is how do you make this never, ever happen to you? Okay, Chuck, so it's actually pretty simple unless you have some sort of congenital disorder that is producing chronic kidney stones in you, which is extremely sad, and I feel very badly for you. There's some really easy ways you can keep from probably ever getting a kidney stone in your entire life.
Yeah. I mean, I know you think drinking water is a scam, but...
Who, me?
Yeah, I remember you went on a tirade years ago about how that whole drinking 8 glasses of water a day is bunk.
Oh, no. So that is drinking 8 glasses of water. The number was made up. I think drinking water is good, but the number of glasses is just totally like made up.
Well, this is 2 liters per day.
Yeah.
So that's a number.
It is, but there was a study that backed it up.
Okay. They say there's a study that said if you drink a couple of liters of water a day, it resulted in 149 fewer stones per 1,000 people.
Right.
And it just makes sense, to keep water flowing through your kidneys and flowing through your system and keeping everything nice and saturated, that it would help prevent the buildup of those little particles, those minerals.
Right, because you've got enough pee that those things, even the toughest solubles are going to stay in solution rather than precipitate out. But also one thing that's easily overlooked is when you drink a lot of water, water is pretty much across the board a neutral substance. So it actually helps maintain the pH balance in your body. And as we've seen, there's at least 2 different kinds of kidney stones you can get, depending on whether your urine is too acidic or too alkaline. And drinking a lot more water can make your urine closer to neutral, which is a big deal too. Plus, it just mechanically helps flush away stuff before they get a chance to really aggregate.
Yeah. You can cut down on animal proteins. You can cut down on your salt. You can cut down on your oxalate. You won't find oxalate in a lot of stuff, but it is there's a lot of oxalate in spinach.
Yeah, that's bad
and
news.
Apparently chocolate and rhubarb, but spinach, how much spinach are you really eating?
I didn't see how much it would take to really start to get into the danger zone with kidney stones, but I mean...
I like spinach, but I don't eat that much of it.
It's more one of those things, it's like, man, you just can't win. No matter how good you're trying to be, how healthy you're trying to be, you're still... It's going to get you. Yahweh's going to get you one way or another.
That's what the shirt says. The calcium, you might think, well, if it's a calcium buildup, then have less calcium. but that's a bit of a thing too, because oxalate is there, and if you're low on calcium, then it's going to increase excretion of oxalate. So just keep your calcium intake normal.
Yeah. Just don't overdo anything, but
weird.
also just don't do anything. Just lie there drinking water all day long and you might be okay.
That's right. That's all called primary prevention. Things you could do on the front end. If you have chronic kidney problems and kidney stones, then secondary prevention is that's when that's going to come into play. Mm-hmm. And that basically means you're going to be on medication and you're going to be checking your pH in your urine and stuff like that a lot. Yeah,
and usually like if you have a kidney stone, it's your first one ever, they're probably not going to do a whole lot of investigative work. But if you start to show symptoms that you have chronic kidney stones, then they're going to want to figure out what it is in your body, what it is in your diet, your lifestyle, your metabolism, whether it's a congenital disorder. They're going to really kind of try to get to the bottom of it so that they can adjust you either by meds or by lifestyle adjustments to make it less likely that you're going to produce any more stones.
All right. Should we talk about it now? Is it time?
Sure.
How we pass these things? No? You don't want to?
What are we talking about?
How we pass the stones.
Oh, how we pass them. I thought you said, are we past it? I was like, we're still in the thick of it as far as I could tell.
So when the stones are forming, you're not going to feel much pain. You're not going to even know what's going on. I don't care how in tune you are with your body. You're not going to feel those little minerals getting together and having a party down there.
No.
When it detaches from the wall of the kidney or wherever it's meeting up, that is when you're going to start to feel the pain. You mentioned fever and chills. That could certainly happen. Mm-hmm. And those spasms. Mm-hmm. I did mention that it might feel like a pulled muscle. And the spasms are pretty, chronic, like 1 to 4 spasms an hour of them trying to shake that thing loose. And I have a feeling that's about all the kidney can manage because it's probably doing about all it can to spasm,
winded. Yeah.
And then once the kidney stones have moved on from there, that's kind of the worst part.
Yeah, well, that's comparatively speaking, from what I can tell, it's the worst part. It still gets pretty bad. And by the way, big shout out to Urology of Greater Atlanta for spelling this out for us.
Yes.
But they say that once you hit stage 2, it's reached your ureters. And yes, you'll probably be like, wow, that kidney pain was pretty bad. This is not that bad compared to it. But if the average person just went into ureter pain, kidney stone pain, they would probably, beg for you to lay on them with a pillow on their face.
Yeah, that's an 8 or a 9 when they ask you that awesome question.
Yeah. And they're like, well, I don't understand the number you just said. Can you make the face on this chart?
I always just say 9. That's my default.
Is it? I thought you had a high pain threshold.
I do have a high threshold for pain. I like to shock the doctors.
Shock the doctor.
That's right.
So still, like I said before, the ureter is not flexible. It's a very narrow opening. And it itself has that kind of mechanism where it clamps on to the stone and tries to pulsate the muscles above it so that it pushes it down. And it occurs in spasms and waves as well. Finally, when this thing pops out into your bladder, that's when you might just not feel any more pain, depending on the size of the stone. And if you don't have trouble passing urine, you're probably going to be able to pass this thing, provided that it's smaller than the opening in your urethra, without any further problems. The problem is if you do have problems passing pee, that bladder can develop into a bladder, or that stone can develop into a bladder stone where it just sits there. It doesn't get passed out of there very easily, and it can get worse there, and then you can have a whole other advent of pain.
Yeah, and is that when it's stuck in the urethra, or just?
No, it can stay in your bladder, but it can also get stuck in your urethra too, because your bladder, from what I can tell, is definitely the biggest part of your whole urinary tract. Yeah,
if it's stuck in your urethra, you're close, friends.
So
you're
close.
Almost there.
Yeah,
and you have to do what sports teams talk about, which is trust the process.
Right.
And that means every 5 or 10 minutes, you got to go in there and give it the old college try. And it'll come out.
Apparently, Urology of Greater Atlanta says that you need to push, and you need to push hard to get it to shoot out, and keep pushing until the stone shoots out into the bowl of your toilet. Or, I guess if you go to a different urologist, into your little plastic mesh thing that you're paying into, that you could wear as a hat later on.
I can't imagine the relief one might feel when that thing finally plops into that toilet bowl.
I can't either. There surely are tears involved.
Yeah, I mean, tears of joy.
Right.
All kinds of tears.
Tears of triumph.
I would have a ceremony. I would throw a party.
Yeah. What would you do to the stone then if you wouldn't get it made into a grill?
I'd just put it in a little formaldehyde jar and wear it around my neck on a chain.
Okay, I like that one too.
I mean, a grill's a little gaudy. I think a necklace is more appropriate.
Okay. Do you want to talk about history?
Yeah, I mean, this is always fun. Obviously, there's been kidney stones since the beginning of time, and that's why I always love talking about old-timey medicine, is because just the confusion they all must have felt with everything that happened to them, including something like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. If you're pre-scientific, you would feel like you were being punished for going through this. If you had no idea what was going on, and there were surely countless untold numbers of human beings who experienced kidney stones before we had any idea what they were. But the fact that you were standing there trying to pee this thing out, whether this was 150,000 years ago or 1,000 years ago, some people would pass them, and there would be some curious types around who would say, let me see that thing. What is that? Where'd that come from? And it started to get us to investigate and think about it, how to deal with these things.
It's amazing. I think they found a mummy that clearly had kidney stones, dated to 4,800 BCE.
Yeah.
Not bad. And then there's good old Alice Cornelius Celsus, who wrote a very, very great, detailed encyclopedia of surgical techniques of the time, which was around 50 CE. And this is like legit. He really goes into pretty good detail about surgical removal, incisions in the perineum, and locating the stone with his fingers and holding it there with a tool and cutting it out and removing it. So it's one of the first. I mean, I say it worked. I think there was about a 24% mortality rate, but I would say one of the first semi-successful surgical procedures that people did. Right,
and so this it was called lithotomy. Lithotomy. Ed makes a really good point that I think is easy to overlook, that like if this guy was writing this nearly 2,000 years ago, and he was writing like, this is how you do this, and it seems like a pretty straightforward procedure, like think about how much trial and error and terrible surgeries were performed to figure out how to perform that surgery to remove kidney stones.
He wasn't like, first try, nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it, right. And apparently up until the 19th century, the mortality rate for a lithotomy was still around 25%. A quarter of people just died from that procedure, which makes sense because, in case you didn't notice, the perineum is the area between your groin and your anus, and that's what they were cutting into to get to your bladder to remove the stone, which is weird because by that time you would think you'd already gone through the worst of it. So it must have been bladder stones specifically that this surgery was for.
Paging Dr. Taint.
So that means then, Chuck, that you already went through the worst of the pain, stage 1 and stage 2. It finally made it in the bladder, and now they're cutting in your perineum to get it out of there. So just wanted to make sure that if you haven't fainted from queasiness in this episode, we gave it one more chance. Okay?
Yes, I can uncross my legs now.
You got anything else?
Nothing else.
I don't have anything else either. And since I said that, it's time for listener mail.
This is a follow-up. We got a lot of good feedback on the dentistry episode. A theory on the worms. My name is Tony, and I'm a dental nurse from London, UK. First of all, I have to let you know what a big fan I am of the podcast. I've learned countless things, and it always manages to perk me up on even the most mundane days. I decided to write in on the listener mail because you were talking about the Babylonians describing a toothache as toothworms and wonder where the phrase came from. It's a complete guess. We'll likely never know for sure, but I do have a theory. When a tooth is broken or extensively decayed, the nerve can sometimes become exposed, and not only is it extremely painful for the person whose tooth it is, but the nerve looks like a little pink string or a worm. If you type into Google tooth nerve or exposed tooth nerve, you'll find some images of what I mean. It's just a theory, but I hope it helps. Kindest regards from Tony in the UK, and I bet Tony is totally right.
Yeah, man, that actually is a great guess. Like, I subscribe to Tony's hypothesis.
Because that's what those yokels did back then. They just said, it looks like this.
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
But, dude, imagine your tooth being so broken that the nerve is just sitting there dangling out. I can't imagine how bad that would hurt.
Josh, for one of my 3 teeth, I bit into a chicken wing and my tooth broke in half.
Oh, man. And your nerve was exposed?
My nerve wasn't exposed. It actually didn't hurt at all. I stayed for the rest of the football game even.
Nice.
It was at a Falcons game, yeah. But I knew immediately this was the second one. I was like, oh, man, I can't tell you what the words I said, but just
gosh,
like, here
darn
we go.
it.
And I just kept my mouth shut the rest of the game and didn't even tell my friends.
Oh. Like, you literally kept your mouth shut to, like, hold the tooth in place or something?
Not hold it in place, but yeah, I kind of just kept I would talk, but I would generally keep my mouth closed.
Yeah,
because
you're like, go,
oh, boy.
I had sorry, this is, I can't not share this. I had a root canal, like, this past spring.
Mm-hmm.
And the dentist, or the endodontist, did such a good job getting the nerve out of that particular tooth. It came out in one piece. And I was like, can I see? And they held it in front of me. And it really did look like a tiny little white worm. So I really think Tony might be onto something there.
I think you're right, Tony. Tony with an I.
Well, thanks a lot, Tony with an I in jolly old England, I believe.
Jolly old England.
And if you want to get in touch with us like Tony with an I did, you can send us an email. Send it off to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.